Good morning, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today for the closer look, where we will be in conversation with the team from Grevy Zebra Trust. For those who may not know me, my name is Zoe Ntlego, a senior programs manager here at WCN, and I'm so happy to have you with us today. And if you're new to WCN, you have found some of the best people in the world. Welcome, welcome. Here at WCN, we partner with community-based conservation organizations around the world alongside supporters just like yourself. And we help wildlife and people coexist by finding solutions that make that possible. And one thing we're especially proud of here at WCN is that 100% of every designated donation goes directly to our partners in the field, just like GZT over here. I am joining you live from Denver, Colorado. And as you can see, the regulars are already putting their names in and they're telling you where they are. So if you're new and you're like, what are people doing? Put in, introduce yourself. We want to know where you are tuning in from. So before we get started, I want to remind you that this is a conversation between the Gravy Zebra Trust and myself, but and you. So if you're hearing anything, you want to ask a question, please put it in the chat throughout the session. You don't have to wait towards the end, but we will make time at the end. So for those who are not familiar, the Gravy Zebra Trust is the only organization in the world. Did you hear that? In the world that is dedicated to conserving the amazing gravy zebras. They work alongside communities in northern Kenya to protect this species as well as restore rangelands and create conservation solutions that work for the animals as well as the people. It is science, it is community, it is conservation all coming together in a really powerful way. And who I have with me today, amazing, colorful gentleman over here, we have Peter Lalampa, who is Grevy Zebra's executive director. He started at Grevy Zebra Trust, who we fondly call GZT because it's a very long name. He started with them in 2027, which is a long time ago. He has earned international recognition for his conservation leadership, including being a Disney conservation hero, Explorers Club, top 50 honorees. Hello. And he's received the National Geographic Buffet Award for Leadership in Conservation in 2024. He has deep roots in the Samburu, in the community that they work in, and in conservation. And he is proudly one of our board of directors here at WCN because we know how to choose them. We also have the amazing David, who did not grow up in the Samburu. He grew up in the slopes of Mount Kenya, and he brings a fascinating mix of science, research, and on-the-ground conservation experience to the work. At GZT, he leads the research and monitoring efforts, helping the organization use the data, technology to better understand the ecosystems and improve the conservation outcomes of the work that they're doing. He's especially passionate about rangeland restoration and how climate, soils, and landscape help the health of the ecosystem. But that's not all. He is also an amazing photographer. On a trip to Samburu a couple of years ago, he had all of us craning our necks, staring up at the night sky because somehow, even though this was a wildlife trip, he had made us interested and care about stars and constellation, and it was amazing. So clearly, his talents go way beyond conservation and leadership, and we're going to hear a lot about the work that they are doing today. So over to you, Peter.
Thanks, Zoe, and thanks everyone for coming to join us for this talk. I know Zoe has spoken a lot and a mouthful of things that we do, obviously. But really, it's such an honor to be here and share with you some of our work, what we've been able to do because of you walking the journey with us. Grave zebra are one of the most endangered and iconic species that you find in the northern part of Kenya. They're adapted to very arid environment. And just to tell you a little bit of a story, to the next slide, please, David. As a little boy, well, growing up in northern Kenya, I had the opportunity to grow up in this landscape. And as I go out herding livestock, I could interact with herbivores. And one of the herbivores that I interacted with is the amazing grave zebra. I learned a lot from them. Because as you go out herding livestock, you don't know what's out in the wild. And livestock, people, wildlife, they interact in an open ecosystem where we're all looking for the same resources. We're looking for grass, we're looking for water, and using the same space. And so, next slide. So as I grew up, Grevy zebra, being one of the iconic species within the same homestead, where I call home, actually taught me a lot. They alerted me when their predators around the landscape. How do they alert me? Actually, I just look at how vigilant they are out in the wild. And that warned me that there must be a predator around the landscape. What do I do at that instance? I either move the livestock away from dense habitat to avoid predation, or I find a way to go where the graves are going. Because one thing, they are very smart. They know the landscape better than us people. They have adapted in that same ecosystem. Growing up with the lions, they know where the lions are, they can smell where the lions are coming from. And so we learn a lot from them by just watching their behavior. And as a young boy, I followed the tracks of the Grevy to find where there's water. And that's where I quench my thirst with the livestock that I'm herding. I also follow the tracks of the Grevy to find where there's pasture for our cows. And in a way, we coexisted. I survived because of the Grevies, and our livestock survived because of the Grevies. And so that love of interaction, that love of learning from them as my first teachers and as my first class, made me really glued to this amazing species. One that I would consider like a dull environment that if I don't have them within the same ecosystem. Next, David. But something has happened to this species. They have had a dramatic decline in numbers. We were talking of 15,000 Grevies in the wild in 1970s, 1980s. Currently, we are talking about 3,000 Grevies. And the occurrences in the mountain zebra are around 25,000. Well, the plain zebra are 500,000. What has happened with this species? In fact, in 1970s, 1980s, they were being hunted because of their beautiful skin. They have these amazing thin stripes. And because of that, people hunted them as a trophy. Thanks God, that threat is no longer there. Next. The biggest threat that the Grevy zebra faces today is habitat loss. And habitat loss is linked to overgrazing. My community, the pastoral communities that we work with, are nomadic pastoralists. They move vast landscape in search of water and pasture. And as they move, they give land recovery period. But something changed along the way. People want to settle closer to schools. People want to settle closer to shopping centers. People want to settle closer to health centers. And these are very important social amenities. And so because of that, that led to people grazing in the same space every day. And that led to disappearance of perennial grasses. And just to give you a glimpse of what we do as Grevy Zebra, I wanted to share a small clip of a video of our work and our mission.
With only 3,000 remaining in the wild, the endangered Grevy zebra stands at a crossroads. In the arid rangelands of northern Kenya, their fate is intimately tied to the indigenous communities who share these lands. Grevy Zebra Trust is the only organization solely dedicated to protecting this magnificent species. We know that to save the species, the solutions we develop for Grevy zebra must also be solutions for people. Our vision is bold yet simple. A growing Grevy zebra population thriving alongside peaceful communities across healthy, connected rangelands. Our new strategic plan guides us towards this vision through
valuing Grevy zebra.
Ownership of Grevy zebra conservation is embedded within indigenous and local communities.
Understanding Grevies.
action is informed by accurate information on Grevy zebra populations.
Supporting Grevy survival.
Immediate threats to Grevy zebra are mitigated.
Regenerating rangelands.
Healthy rangelands support people, livestock, and Grevy zebra.
Connecting landscape.
Community and Grevy zebra needs are integrated into land use planning. Together, these goals create lasting change at the landscape level. We are moving forward with urgency and purpose to scale our successes and pioneer what's next. Thank you for joining us on this journey. Together, we're building a future where both people and Grevy zebra thrive.
Thank you, David, for sharing that. As you've realized that the video touches on a number of areas, and we were founded in 2007 with the sole purpose of conserving these magnificent species. We work within a big landscape. Over 10,000 square kilometers is our operation area. Next. And we work within a landscape that's an open access where wildlife, people move freely. There are no fences. But as they move around, it's within the Wasonyiro ecosystem, the only bloodline in terms of permanent water river that flows from Mount Kenya all the way to Samburu. And that's where the people, the wildlife, depend on for access to water. Next. We have an amazing team. Over 100 staff work within Grevy Zebra Trust. And this amazing team is driven by passion, dedication, and a wealth of knowledge within the ecosystem that have grown to know every tree, every river, every point where Grevy zebra can actually thrive, as well as the livestock that coexist with the same zebra. So it's such an amazing team that really dedicate their time, their night to conserve the species. Next. And so I wanted really to break it down. Apart from the 120 staff that work within Grevy Zebra Trust, there are field teams that are really tailored towards addressing particular challenges that the Grevies face. And one of the team is our Grevy Zebra Scouts, which is predominantly women. And it's really been tailored to that way because we realize that in order for us to get valuable data in terms of Grevy zebra distribution, in terms of where Grevies get water, where they get pasture, then we need to engage this social group, which is purely women. And so they go out each day to collect valuable data that informs us a lot in terms of conservation of Grevy zebra. And for you to realize how much these ladies are investing their energy and time to conserve the Grevies, I wanted to tell a story. And I wanted to tell a story of one amazing scout called Margaret. When we employed Margaret, Margaret did not understand what it takes to conserve the Grevies. But each day we trained Margaret. We trained Margaret to go out and collect the data. We trained Margaret to start looking at the social demographics of Grevies that she meets out in the wild. But as Margaret does that, Margaret developed some passion and love for the Grevies. She connected with the species as they interact out in the wild. And so one day, as Margaret was out collecting data, she comes across this lonely foal that has been abandoned in the wild. Margaret was a little bit terrified. What's happening with this foal? And so she stayed with the foal the whole day up to the evening. Margaret was expecting the mother to the foal to come back, but that did not happen. And so with terror and fear of this foal being predated on, Margaret walked back to her village. She talked to the elders so that she can bring back this fall. But the elders were a bit adamant that you cannot bring wild animals back home because the culture does not allow. Through her persistence and through her engagement, the elders decided, okay, let's give Margaret a chance to bring the great zebra fall. Margaret, with the help of young men, brought the fall back home. When she brought the fall back home, they decided to milk their goats and fed the fall. At the same time, Margaret was calling us that there's this young foal that needed rescue. Through our Northern Vet Unit, we were able to take this foal to a nursery where it was being raised. That's the love that these particular women give to the Grevies. And I asked Margaret, why did you have to do that? She said, it's the love of mother. She couldn't imagine leaving this foal out abandoned. It was like leaving a child out there in the wild. That's the kind of passion we realize as we engage communities. It's truly community-led conservation at work. Next. Apart from our scouts, who are dedicated to collect data for us in terms of distribution of Grevies, we have an amazing team. We call them the Grevy Zebra Ambassadors. And we call them ambassadors because when we started working in this area called Alberta, there was fight between different tribal groups. And as these tribal groups fight over livestock, Grevy zebra meat and other wildlife get themselves being used as a delicacy. And so we started getting this social group who've been trained on paramilitary to control poaching, but instead of them using guns and boots, they use dialogue. They bring the two warring groups, the Turkana and Samburu, to the same table to talk about peace. So their focus is to build peace in this particular area because we realize that without peace of the people, even the Grevy will not have peace. They have dedicated a lot of their time working in this very volatile area that if you talk to any Kenyan, they can't imagine working in this particular area called the Baragoi. It's synonymous with conflict, it's synonymous with death. But these teams have been able to bring communities together and talk about peace for the community as well as for the great zebra. Next. So as the scout, the ambassadors are working within addressing different challenges. We have another different group. We call them the great zebra warriors. Yes, they go out collecting data, just like the scout and the ambassadors. But one unique thing is that the area where they work is very harsh and arid environment, where the land is filled with plateaus that have black lava plateaus. It's not very easy to access this area with a car. But we engage young men, we call them warriors. These young men have the energy to go up the plateau and they collect very valuable data for us. This data has been able to enable us to shape our conservation action in this area because the distance between the grazing field where the Grevies go for pasture is far away from where the Grevies access water. And so we started tailoring our conservation action to addressing access for water for the Grevies in this area. And thanks to support from some of our friends from WCN, who've been able to put up a wildlife dedicated water point in this area. And Grevies can come earlier, have water, and be able to walk far distance in search of pasture. That's how our conservation initiatives are tailored to address different actions, different challenges. Next. It's because of all these things that we're seeing amazing results and amazing impact within this landscape. And thanks to the journey that we've worked together, we're seeing a lot of impact, a lot of results from conservation of Grevies in northern Kenya. And so I'm going to turn to my colleague, David, to let you know some of the impact that we've seen by engaging our warriors, our ambassadors, as well as our scouts. So over to you, David.
Yeah, thank you very much, Peter. Thanks everyone for joining us. Thanks for giving us your time. I'll talk a little bit about our impact and in some of the areas that we're seeing, and especially the impact that is driven by the teams on the ground, the teams in the field themselves. Like Peter mentioned, we do have a good track record in the last few years, and one of the most exciting things that we've seen is the fact that we have so many foals being born in the last couple of years. We had a big dip during the drought. We had a drought from 2020 to 2023, but the populations were able to bounce back. And the last couple of years, we've seen a very large increase in foal percentages. Just for context, when we are looking at these populations, what we like seeing is around a 30% threshold of foals and juveniles to adults. That tells us that that population is growing even in the lack of actual discrete numbers of the population. That tells us that the population is growing. And so most of the areas that we work in have seen foal and juvenile ratios above 30% in the last couple of years. Specifically, Alberta, the region that I've mentioned, we are seeing almost a 40% foals and juveniles to adult ratio. Lysamis, which is the really dry region that Peter also mentioned, is at 37%, and then Wamba is at around 32%. Overall, giving us an average percentage of 33% of foals and juveniles, which is really good. Anything above 20 is good, 30 is ideal, and we're currently sitting at 33%. This figure obviously is going to fluctuate depending on birth rates and how the conditions in the landscapes are. But because we know that next year, we've seen that next year there's likely to be some good rains and forage as well, at least the beginning of next year. So we hope that we're also going to see foals being born. I was in the Alberta region, and I'll talk about that in a little bit, and talking about how the foals and pregnant females there look like. One of the other big impacts that our teams on the ground are able to, and obviously this work in terms of the foals and the juveniles isn't just a result of our work, it's also work we were doing with partners, from rangelands work to protection work by the Kenya Wildlife Service and other partners, the different conservancies we work in. It's really a concerted effort of conservation partners and communities working together. So another big thing that we've seen, that sort of we put forward as a shining example of the importance of these scouts on the ground, the people on the ground actually collecting the data, is the fact that we were able to influence at the national government level the routing of an infrastructure project, a project known as the Lamu Port South Sudan Ethiopia Transport Corridor, or the LAPSET corridor. And this is basically connecting, the part that is relevant to us is connecting the port of Lamu at the coast of Kenya with South Sudan. And one of the infrastructure components passing through our area was a pipeline. Unfortunately, the design of the pipeline went through one of the key breeding areas that Grevy zebra rely on in an area called Maybai. And once these results had been released, we were able to see that, and we were able immediately to get all the data that we have from our scouts and see that it was indeed passing through the heart of the breeding area. And take that, we were able to take that data to the government agencies in charge through dialogue over time, taking them to Samburu to actually see the area, even sponsoring a few of the engineers to be able to go and see best practice in other areas and how to mitigate against wildlife conservation, especially in areas. We know that development is a necessity and it has to happen, especially for a lot of the communities in this area. But how can we do it while at the same time balancing with the needs of the wildlife, especially in such an important conservation area? So thanks to these the efforts for the team that was lobbying the joint project through the Grevy Zebra Trust and Ewaso Lions called the Biodiversity and Infrastructure Program, which is now a Connected Landscapes Program. Through the efforts of that lobbying, we were able to get the design of the pipeline changed from where it was crossing through the middle of the breeding zone, which is the line in red, the dotted line in red, to actually going around that area, which is the line in blue. And so currently the design of the LAPSET project is now going around into the line in blue, and that work would not have happened without the efforts of the scouts, the data that they were giving out, because this is now data that collected over several years. And by bringing the infrastructure development teams out to come and see both the scouts doing their work as well as the Grevy zebra themselves in the areas. So it's not just dots on a map, but also seeing the actual species on the ground. We were able to change hearts and minds that way. And so that's one of the main impacts, that you can draw a straight line from the work of, these scouts, Peter talking about walking from, morning to evening looking for Grevies, collecting that data, and that data being used at the national level to influence policy. So that's really a clear line between, effort and impact. In the area that I mentioned, called Baragoi, like Peter said, lots of conflict, but going out there, I was there last week, and I was able to take these images. And one of the things that really struck me is how much wildlife there is in this area that Kenyans think of as, a dangerous area, a high insecurity area, which it is in some senses. But the fact that our ambassadors are working with the teams there, working with the county government, they're working with different conservation and peace partners to actually get the communities together, educating them about the Grevy zebra and the importance of the Grevy zebra in the ecosystem, as well as the other wildlife in the ecosystem. And this has really borne fruit in terms of the numbers that we are seeing out there. We are primarily seeing a large increase in terms of foals and juveniles to adults. Is the area that has the highest of those. But even just the numbers themselves, as you're driving through that day, I think I saw at least 5 herds, each with a minimum of 20 Grevies in each. And so that's a really encouraging sign for the future as we work on the Great Grevy's Rally next year, which is the photographic census, where we used to identify the exact numbers of the animals that we have remaining. We're pretty optimistic that in some of these areas where we're seeing so many animals, that we've had an increase in the populations in those areas. And again, that work is due to really the work that these community members are doing, whether it's the scouts, whether it's the ambassadors, whether it's the warriors. That's really what the work that they're doing is really what is pushing the results that we are seeing. In terms of being able to run these teams, this is just a quick snapshot of what it costs to run these teams. For our scout program, which is primarily the women, it's about $117,000 a year. For the ambassadors, it's about $133,000 a year. And for the warriors, it's about $83,000 a year. And this covers equipment costs, it covers salaries of the scouts, it covers logistics primarily for being able to go out and provide these, especially in areas where the phones need charging, the phones need repairing, the logistics to go out and get those teams, providing them with camping equipment, ensuring that they're safe. This is what GZT invests, and a lot of the partners here today, a lot of the participants here today, through your contributions, are the ones that have led to these types of success. And so we'd just like to say thank you for that, and just give you an idea of what it costs to run these teams every year. So in general, what is our vision for the landscape, really? Our vision for the landscape is a growing Grevy zebra population that's thriving alongside peaceful communities across healthy, connected rangelands. That's really simply what we want to see. We want a future where these Grevy zebra numbers are growing. We want to see a world where we are no longer needed, where the Grevies are thriving in the wild and only need minimal attention. And that's really what the vision we're working towards, a vision where the Samburu and the Turkana, the Rendile, all these communities we work with in the north are healthy, happy, and their livestock is doing well, but also the rangelands and that they rely on is healthy. So that's really the vision that we're working towards. And we'd just like to invite you to follow us in this journey. This is my friend here helping me call everybody out to action. Walk this journey with us. For those of you that are already donors, thank you. Those that are interested in donating, we welcome you. But even if it's a $10 donation, that will pay for bundles, airtime bundles for our scout for a month. But even then, everyone can also contribute by following us on social media, signing up for our newsletter, helping us get the word out, tell a friend to tell a friend about the Grevy zebra. A lot of people don't know that there's a difference between a Grevy zebra and a common zebra. So, just even getting that information out there for people to be aware that there's such a species, all of that is going to contribute to both the conservation and the recovery of these species. Not just, obviously our main aim is to halt the decline, but in an ideal world, we want these numbers to increase and improve. And really that's the help that we need from you is really getting the word out to potential partners and potential collaborators. So with that, I think I'll hand it over back to Peter to wrap it up. And thank you for giving us your time. Thank you for giving us a listening ear, and feel free to ask any questions as you'd like. Thanks, Peter.
Thanks, David. And yeah, thanks for making that shout out and for inviting our friends to continue walking the journey with us. And obviously, for also inviting new people to join us in this journey. It's been a journey that we don't just attribute our impact to ourselves alone. It's been a journey with all of us walking this journey together. And so we really want to say thank you for that. Really appreciate walking the journey with you now and in the future. Back to you, Zoe.
Thank you so much. That was amazing. Just want to remind everybody, if you do not put your questions in the Q&A, this will become my Q&A session where I'll ask all the questions, and nobody wants that. So please put your questions in the chat. Thank you, guys, for that. That was interesting. I know the work very well, but that was still very interesting. First of all, this is not a question, it's a comment. What amazing photos. Just the photography in this presentation was just so amazing.
Yeah.
So I'm going to start with my question since I'm running the show, and I'm hoping that gives everybody a kick to ask their questions in the Q&A. I'm always very interested hearing about young people's involvement in conservation, and the Grevy Zebras War is such a great example of that. How common is it to see young people interested and actively involved in conservation in the work that you do with, especially in the communities where you work? And what do you think helps inspire that involvement?
Thanks, Zoe. I think I can take that. And if David has anything to add, then he can do that. Obviously, for us as Grevy Zebra Trust, we work very closely with the young people. All our programs are tailored to do school outreach, where we go to schools, give talks to kids at schools, and inspire them to know the status of Grevy Zebra in our landscape. We also engage the young herders out in the wild. So as the scouts go out, as the warriors go out, as the ambassadors go out, they talk to the herders because these are the people who are always out in the wild, and these are the people who interact with species. And obviously, you can have a few handful of individuals working within the trust, but the bigger community are our eyes and ears on the ground. And so they give valuable data, and we share a lot of information with them to inspire them to realize that the conservation of grevies is intertwined with their own livelihood. And I borrow this from what I've experienced in the past. And so I didn't imagine that grevies are actually dwindling in numbers. But once I realized that, that created care within my heart. And so that's the same inspiration that I give to the young people when I go out and talk to them. That's the same inspiration that our team give to the young people as they go out and talk to them. And it's just so amazing to see the warriors really being proud as they go out to talk with their peers. Because other people do not get the time to talk with the warriors, but our warriors are able to engage their peers, inspire them to engage in conservation. I don't know whether, David, you have anything to add, but that has been our journey.
Yeah, I think just sort of to add to just to reiterate the importance of the especially the warrior group. I think we realized very early on that there are quite an underrepresented group in the conservation conversation. They're supposedly the ones out there destroying the landscape, and so once we were able to start engaging with them, we were able to sort of clear up that picture. We now have Moran councils in a lot of the areas we work in where we're able to discuss issues that are pertinent to them specifically. And so that engagement is critical to getting any conservation agenda being done on the ground, because they're the ones actually out there with the energy doing the work. So yeah, just reiterating that.
Awesome. That's great to hear. So at least it sounds like in the communities you work in, conservation is in good hands with the young people and they are interested. All right. Well, that question did trigger a lot of questions, so that's great. I have a question from Rangaram Chari. What is the correlation between El Nino events and mortality rates of Grevy zebra?
I can take
I'll
that.
let David respond to that.
Yeah, I'm the weatherman. Yeah, so for us in El Nino in East Africa, the El Nino phenomenon, for those of you that don't know, is a temperature anomaly in the Pacific Ocean, and the way that interacts with the East Africa is primarily through increased rainfall most of the time, not always, but increased rainfall a lot of the time. And so in terms of interacting with the Grevy zebra, it's usually positive most of the time in terms of increased rainfall means more vegetation, whether that's perennial grasses, whether that's even ephemerals and annuals. It's usually a period of increased productivity, and so it's usually good for the Grevies. The only caveats are maybe when we have floods in some areas that are catastrophic. I can't remember off the top of my head mortalities that we've seen from the flooding, but it's always a risk because other animals, especially giraffes, for some reason, tend to get swept away. So that's really the only danger. If for us, the main danger is to the people that are trying to crisscross the landscapes, getting caught in flash floods and such. So I'd say in general, the El Nino effect for us is relatively positive. The opposite, the La Nina, is the one that leads a lot of times to droughts in East Africa. So that's really the one that we associate with mortalities.
Perfect.
And maybe just if I can add a little bit in terms of that, there's one particular spot where we work in Laisamis because the rains do happen up in Highland in Samburu, and then the river flows all the way to Malgis. In that particular stretch, what Grevy is getting stuck in mud, and just because they come crossing looking for water, and that has really affected Grevies in the past. We used to have a team volunteering day and night to remove the Grevies that are stuck in mud, but I think they have learned something and they avoid this area so far, and so we don't see those cases happening of late.
Amazing. Well, at least they're adapting. Lynette would like to know whether in the Matthews range, whether GZT is sharing the same rangeland as the Redeti elephant.
Yeah, I will point out that in terms of the elephants that are released to the wild, obviously the Grevies within the lowland, they share space with the elephant, the orphaned elephants. But because Grevies do not tend to go to dense habitat, that's up the Matthew ranges, they like open habitat just to avoid the predation. And so that's where, if the elephant come down all to the open areas, then we see an overlap in their range. But Grevies tend to avoid going up the mountains because of dense habitats.
Awesome. And then Rebecca wants to know what is the primary threat for Grevy zebras? She believes that she heard that you mentioned habitat loss, but is illegal poaching also happening?
In two areas, we have instances of illegal poaching. The area that we talked about called Alberta, and obviously the poaching is for subsistence. People use the grape zebra meat as they go out for raid and stuff like that. But also around Isiolo, we have a community that uses the grape zebra meat as a delicacy. What have we done to address that? We have a joint operation where we do joint patrol with the Kenya Wildlife Service, the Conservancy Rangers, and to ensure that we just have teams on the ground to ensure that the Grevies and other herbivores are safe. Through that joint patrol, we are also able to engage the community to understand exactly the status of the Grevies as well as the status of other herbivores. We've seen a decline in poaching those areas, especially where people use guns. They no longer use guns because they know their ears and eyes on the ground. And so there's more of poaching using snares. But we also have a snare sweeping campaign every month where our team goes out and sweep the area to remove all the snares.
Amazing. David, I don't want you to just sit there and just say anything. Speaking of young people, and Joanna's question is linked to this, what does a young person who's like, this is so interesting, I want to get into this kind of work, what do they have to study to work at Grevy Zebra Trust or similar organizations that do conservation work like you guys do?
So yeah, thanks for that question. Conservation is really a multidisciplinary job or industry. Yes, there's a lot of conservation educated people, so maybe people that have studied natural resource management, similar. But we also have different professional finance people because of the fundraising and the financing is obviously quite important for sustainability. We have veterinarians and epidemiologists as well working with us on the animal health side of things. We have comms people. We have different types of professions. I think it will be challenging to limit in terms of maybe things that are not applicable, because I feel like across the range there's different types of expertise needed. It's just a use case. So in some areas, for example, they might need people more trained in law, for example, in places where one of the main challenges might be things to do with judiciary type work for anti-poaching. In some places, it's more science heavy, like in some of the areas we work in. But also things like social science, which is really needed in a lot of these areas that we tend to have not an overcrowding, but we have an abundance of biologists, but we have a dearth of social scientists. So that's some of the areas. So there's quite a few different I'd say professions that you can use to get into conservation as an industry. It's just really looking out for where the needs are and exploring those.
And the person's interest too, right? So that
Yeah.
not everyone has to be a researcher or a scientist. If you're interested in communications, you could do communications for a
Yes.
conservation organization.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Grant writers, people that know how to speak good English, people that speak English good, I think are always important for grant writing, etc. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, Eric and Rita had the same idea. They want to know, they know that you guys work in Kenya, but they want to know what is the status of the Grevy zebras in Ethiopia? And is there any protection work being done? Is the population increasing, decreasing? What's happening? And yeah, Peter, you take it.
I don't know whether David you want to take that, but I will just start it off.
Okay.
That we do work very closely with the Ethiopian Wildlife Authority in terms of conservation in that area. And we have an amazing team that's within the equity specialist group, Patricia Morman and Kabebe, who works in that area. And so we had sent our team to go and support them to establish the monitoring team. They spent quite a few days just training their teams to be able to collect data. And so this very close collaboration with the Ethiopian Conservation of Gravis through the Equity Specialist Group. They participated in the International Equity Conference that we hosted in Kenya. And they've really been a key partner in terms of conservation of Gravis. Although they focus so much on the wild ass, but they do a lot of work on Grevy zebra conservation in Ethiopia. I don't know, David.
Yeah, I think just in terms of the numbers, I think I'm holding off a lot of these questions about the numbers because we haven't done a comprehensive survey in Ethiopia in a while. As well as in Kenya, we've done some surveys without the numbers, but we are hoping to change all of that in 2027. Right now, we are using proximate numbers, but in 2027, we should get a good model of the species status in Ethiopia as well as in Kenya and a lot of the places where GZT doesn't work, like southern Kenya, which haven't been censused in a while.
Awesome. Another question is on the being able to do everything. We all try to do everything. Conservation challenges are endless. It's wildlife protection, it's community working with communities and resisting harmful development projects like the pipeline. How do you at GZT decide which issues to focus on without spreading your teams too thin and losing sight of the core mission?
I think I'll take part of that and maybe you can add. How do we tailor our conservation action? Number one is working very closely with the local communities. We spend tons of time sitting under acacia tree, talking to the local communities, first of all, to understand how was the land in the past? How is it today? And what's our vision for the future? And through that sitting under the acacia trees, we're able to tailor our conservation action through co-creation with the local communities, because they're the people who share space with the Grevies. As an institution, we don't want to say this is what needs to happen within the ecosystem. We want the communities to be the driver that sits on the driver's seat and drive the actions of conservation of Grevies through what they feel is definitely appropriate. I'm very sure David will tell you, it's not just about sitting with the communities. There must be science involved. And I like him because he's always like whipping me to realize that not just communities alone, but there must be science. So over to you, David.
Yeah, so I think the main thing here is also data. I think Peter and I have a good balance because he's very in tune with the communities and the social side of things, which tends to escape me sometimes. But I think in terms of we have to work on information. So through our teams on the ground, obviously, as they're collecting information, they're also collecting the threats that they're finding on the ground. And every time when we review our strategic plan, that's when we sit down and discuss what are the threats, what are our strengths as an institution, where can we step in, where is outside our remit, or where do we already have other partners working on that we don't need to replicate, sort of duplicate efforts. So once we do that and come up with a strategic plan, that's really, Peter always calls it our guiding Bible, because that's really what keeps us. It's very easy to spread yourself thin trying to do everything, but the strategic plan helps us narrow down our focus and actually be more effective, because we talk about a lot at GZT, efficiency and effectiveness, and that can't happen without something like a strategic plan that allows you to focus on what you're doing. When we do reviews of the strategic plan, some threats might come to the fore more than they were before. So things like biodiversity maybe weren't, very big in previous strategic plans, but not biodiversity, but infrastructure development hadn't been as big. We probably didn't have as much poaching in some of the areas, so maybe that wasn't as big. So every time we review the strategic plan, it's also a chance for us to see what new threats have come up that have become more important, that we need to transfer more resources to. What threats have we more or less helped manage that we can then move away from? So it's really an iterative process that involves a lot of monitoring and evaluation, trying to understand your role in the landscape.
Thank you. I have a question from Karen as well as Anne. They're related, but they talk about different collaborators. So they're wondering, do you work and share data with other organizations such as the Shedrack Wildlife Trust or the Liwa Wildlife Conservancy?
So I can take the collaboration part. Yes, partnerships are a big part of our strategy. Like I mentioned, we are not the size of organization that can like Peter said, we work in an area that's about 10,000 square kilometers, 1,000,000 hectares. GZT has 120 staff. There's no way we would be having the type of impacts we are seeing just by ourselves. So, and that relies on engaging with other conservation organizations, whether it's funding partners, so things like TNC, San Diego Wildlife, all these WCN, St. Louis Zoo, all those types of partners, but also local implementing partners, the Kenya Wildlife Service, the Wildlife Research and Training Institute, Lewa Conservancy, who are members of the Grevy Zebra Technical Committee, which is sort of the Kenyan body that's statutorily in charge of decision making about the Grevy zebra. Mawel Wildlife. We have so many partners that we're working with, and sometimes depending on the area, we might work with different partners in different areas based on what the challenges are. In terms of education, we might work with different people. In terms of peace, we might work with different people. So collaboration is extremely important to us, and it's really horses for courses depending on what the specific objective you're targeting is.
Awesome. On that issue of collaborating and a network, you guys are part of the WCN Partner Network, which has currently 28 partners. And I had a question, obviously, so that we know too, but we want to tell the others, everyone, to understand what is it about the WCN Partner Network that GZT appreciates, and why have you guys been part of this network for so long? Like, why is this club so special?
Thanks, Zoe. I think I will take that. Number one is that the Wildlife Conservation Network is really such an amazing space. And it's an amazing space because, number one, every donation that comes to Grevy Zebra Trust, WCN really send this 100% to us. Nothing goes to WCN. Number two is that because of our collaboration, because of so many partners, the 28 partners that are there, we learn a lot from each other. Every expo, fall expo around October, when we meet, we have workshops with the 28 partners. And we sit down through these workshops. You realize the challenge that another partner is going through, you also have the same challenge. And then you go through a learning process to resolve those conflicts, to resolve those challenges. I've seen a really amazing discussion also happening within these groups. And one thing that comes out of it is sometimes when you realize a certain partner is working on something that you want to work on, the exchange program between different partners makes a huge difference. I want to say that around April, I went all the way to Zimbabwe, and I was able to gain the painted dog conservation. A lot of the monitoring of the dogs is similar to our monitoring of the gravies that are collared. And I learned a lot from them. Their bush school, it was such an amazing learning lesson for me to sit down when they have all their students coming to learn about conservation, to learn about the painted dog. And I brought so many lessons that I brought back to my team. And we are able to fine tune how to do some things based on the lessons that I got. So cross-partner learning is really such an amazing, learning that we get from this partnership. And obviously, check on WCN. They're just such an amazing team in terms of tailoring also how they address so many things through the wildlife funds, where a number of their funds that comes to WCN is able to do huge impact when you think about areas that we work. Because when you target conserving grevies, you're not only saving the grevies, but you're saving so many other species. And so there's wildlife funds related to elephants, there are wildlife funds related to lions. And so check out WCN. They're such an amazing team to work with.
Well, now that we have that, you guys heard that. You heard how amazing the partner network is, how amazing our partners are, and the amazing work that they do. Just like this example of this whole webinar. And then Peter mentioned so many other things. If this was your taste of what we do and you want to hear and see more, we have the expo, like he said, and that is happening in San Francisco. In San Francisco in October 10th on Saturday, we have Expo Day, which is going to be this presentation times 100 because there's going to be all our partners, all the funds. We are going to be talking about it all. So definitely check us out. And then he also mentioned the 100% that I mentioned right at the beginning of the donations going to protect the wildlife. And you're probably wondering, how do I even send my donation to WCN? And I know someone is going to put it in the chat, our website, and how to donate. So that's going to happen in the next couple of seconds. So watch out for that. So we're going to do a quick round of one word kind of answers, just to keep it exciting before you guys go to bed, because I know it's late in Kenya. So, David, what is keeping you in conservation? What's giving you hope?
Oh, that's an interesting question. Audacity, maybe. No, I think I think it's just I'd say reckless optimism, probably.
Peter, what about you?
Did you say one word?
I mean, he gave a sentence or two, so do something like that. I'll give you that.
Okay, I will take it this way. When I was feeding the zebras in 2022, and everything was on a standstill, and I was feeding this one particular zebra that was collared, and I saw that zebra giving birth to a foal, that gives me hope that the population of great zebra are going to increase. Too many
Amazing.
sentences.
I mean, it's perfect. It's succinct. So, if this is my first webinar, the first time I'm here, my Grevy Zebra Trust, and then I am to go tell somebody when I leave this room, what do you want? The one thing that you want anyone who's leaving this to tell anybody about this work that you do, either this presentation or just your work, Grevy Zebra Trust. Hey, I had a webinar today, and I want you to know this about GZT. Peter, you go.
As you go out, shout out to your friends, tell them there's this amazing species called great zebra. Please, let's walk the journey with us and let's make sure that they remain in this planet.
David, let's hear it.
I think mine is just that there is a different species of red zebra than the regular one that they know. I think, just start from the basics. I think a lot of people don't know there's a lot of different types of zebra. So it's just check them out. They are bigger than you think. So if you can find a chance to come out and visit the north of Kenya and see them for yourself, that's really the best way to experience them.
Oh, speaking about visiting, how do people get in touch if they would like to visit? Do you have accommodation for supporters who are like, I would like to come visit and see the projects in person? How do they do that?
We have a very simple basic camp. I call it basic because you can have a bed, you can have a shower when you visit us. And it's also basic because it's the most remote area where so many people do not go. And so anytime you want to come and join us and see the kind of work that we do, please send your request to us. But there's also a neighbor next door, just a walking distance from us, called Sathab Lodge. So if you want to stay in high-end lodge, there's also a chance for you to stay in Sathab Lodge. But we welcome you to join us.
Yeah, anybody that wants to come, I just have one term to say, welcome, karibu.
Karibu sana. Okay. This has got nothing to do with conservation, but I know somebody's wondering. Can you tell us, Peter, about your outfit real quick? What is this outfit? Is
Oh,
it traditional?
I,
Who
I didn't
wears it?
expect you to ask that.
Why would you expect it?
I didn't expect you to ask that. So this outfit is the Samburu outfit. It's gone a bit of changes as we interact with other communities because it was more red, but we are turning a little bit to white as we interact with the Maasais. But it's just an outfit that we make that connects us with our community, with our people, and it's a representation of who we are as the community that live in northern Kenya. It's a Samburu outfit. Some people might look at it like, oh, it's more like the Maasais. Yes, because we are cousins with the Maasais. And sometimes people ask me, are you a Maasai? Like, kind of, but I'm a Samburu. So that's the outfit. It's purely put on as an ornamental for beauty.
And I'm wearing
Amazing.
a jacket because we were colonized by the British. So that's as much as I can say.
There's that. Okay, well, this was amazing. Thank you so much for joining us. I know how it's late in Kenya, and for those who are thinking about visiting, do go visit. I've been there. It's amazing. The zebras are beautiful. Samburu is beautiful. And then you can get to see the stars. And I don't want to say the stars in Kenya, Samburu are more beautiful. Maybe it's because David was there and was telling us what they called and just, but it's an experience and you want to go there. Please support the work that Grevy Zebra Trust is doing. Thank you so much for coming. And you will receive after this a recording of this. If we didn't get to your question, or as you were telling your friend about the Grevy Zebra Trust and the work they do, more questions come up, please respond to that email, ask questions, and we'll make sure that David and Peter respond. Stay tuned to WCN website for all the amazing events that we are having. Come to San Francisco for Expo if you want. In fact, we want you there. So even if you are not in the US, if you can make it here, come to Expo and come see more of the work that we are doing. Thank you all so much, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening, your day. This has been amazing. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks,
Thank you,
everyone.
Zoe. And thanks, everyone.
Yeah.